Excuses are the chains we forge with our own tongues. Excuses are poverty's favorite song sung loud by the mouths of those who have forgotten their power. They dress themselves in logic, wear the mask of reason, and offer the illusion of safety. But make no mistake, every excuse is a prison. Not of bars and steel, but of mindset, of belief, of identity. Excuses don't protect you, they poison you. They strip you of your agency. They whisper in your ear, "You're not ready. You're too tired. You've already tried." And if you believe them long enough, they become your truth. But here's the real truth. No one ever built a legacy by explaining why they couldn't. No empire was born through justification. No greatness was ever forged in the fires of, "I would have, but." Excuses are the vocabulary of the defeated, the anthem of the mediocre. They are the lullaby of those who've chosen comfort over calling. And once you start speaking their language, they become your currency. A currency that buys you sympathy, but never freedom. A currency that keeps you poor, poor in vision, poor in courage, poor in discipline, poor in results. Because poverty isn't just in the bank account. Poverty begins in the mind, and the mind that runs on excuses will never generate wealth, inner or outer. You want to know how people stay stuck? How people live year after year, circling the same problems, the same pain, the same paycheck? They explain it. They justify it. They build narratives that sound intelligent, but are rooted in fear. It's not the right time. I don't have the resources. I wasn't born with the talent. These are not facts. These are scripts. Memorized lines passed down from the poor in spirit. And the moment you stop questioning them, the moment you stop challenging the noise, you inherit a life that is not yours. It is a copy of someone else's limitations. But you are here now, which means the flame is still alive, which means something inside you is tired of the language of lack. And now is the time to trade it in. Trade your excuses for execution. Trade your fears for fire. Trade your doubt for discipline. Because every time you silence an excuse and take action anyway, you reclaim territory inside your soul. You declare, "I am not powerless." You declare, "I do not belong to limitation." You declare, "I will no longer narrate a story of why I can't because I am too busy proving that I can." And that declaration, that's where richness begins. That's how wealth is born. Not just in money, but in character, in energy, in mastery, in the kind of person you become when you stop explaining away your destiny and start claiming it. Excuses are the reason people live entire lives inside cages with open doors. Don't let that be you. Because every moment you allow an excuse to lead your life, you make a payment. And that payment, it's your potential. Gone. Wasted. Traded for the cheap comfort of, "I'll do it later." But later is not coming. Later is where dreams go to die. And the longer you wait, the heavier the excuse becomes. Until one day, it becomes identity. Until one day, it becomes who you are. And once it owns you, it takes everything with it. Your confidence, your clarity, your drive, your results. You become a shell of who you could have been. But you don't have to live like that. You don't have to be a mouthpiece for mediocrity. You can choose right now to speak a different language. The language of the powerful. The language of the focused. The language of the wealthy in mindset. And that language begins with ownership. Total. Radical. Unapologetic ownership. No more blaming the system. No more blaming the past. No more blaming your parents, your boss, your genes, your environment. Because the moment you give someone else responsibility for your pain, you also hand them control of your power. But the moment you say, "This is mine, my life, my responsibility, my choice," that's the moment the chains break. That's the moment the real wealth begins to accumulate, not just in your wallet, but in your being. And wealth responds to those who own their direction. Because ownership is the seed. And when you plant it in the soil of mindset, everything begins to shift. Mindset isn't about being positive. It's about being powerful. It's not about wishing for the best. It's about preparing for whatever comes, and knowing you can bend it to your will. The poor in mind ask, what if it goes wrong? The rich in mind ask, what will I do when it does, and how fast will I rise? Mindset is your fortress. It is the vault where your habits are guarded, your energy is protected, and your future is defended. You don't wait for motivation. When your mindset is strong, you move, because movement is your muscle memory. The difference between success and stagnation is not Luckett's language. And when your internal language is coded in excuses, every external result suffers. But when your language shifts to ownership, everything responds. Because the universe doesn't speak emotion. It doesn't speak intention. It speaks execution. It listens to frequency. And the frequency of belief, of discipline, of purpose, it moves worlds. So when your mindset sharpens, belief becomes the fire inside. Not belief in ideas, not belief in motivation, belief in yourself. And that belief is forged, not found. It is built in silence, in the dark, when no one is watching, when no one claps. It is built when you show up anyway, when you do the thing you said you would, especially when it's hard. Belief is the result of self-trust, and self-trust is the real wealth, because the world doesn't reward who you pretend to be. It rewards who you consistently are. And if you consistently show up weak, scared, or scattered, don't be shocked when life reflects that back to you. But if you show up clear, if you show up with clarity that burns, you stop chasing. You start attracting, because clarity is a magnet. It makes excuses irrelevant. You don't say, I don't feel like it. You say, feelings don't vote anymore. My future does. You don't ask, is this hard? You ask, is this aligned? You don't seek comfort. You seek alignment. And that alignment gives birth to vision. A vision so clear it makes quitting feel like betrayal. A vision so alive you can taste it in the back of your throat when you wake up. Vision isn't a dream, it's a demand. It calls something out of you that fear cannot touch. It makes excuses sound weak in your ears. You no longer have time for maybe. You no longer have space for someday. You are done waiting. You're building. You're becoming. You're moving with purpose now. And purpose doesn't care about how you feel today. It cares about who you said you would be when you were on your knees, begging for another chance. That's purpose. Purpose remembers. It remembers the nights you said, never again. It remembers the promises you whispered when no one was listening. And now it's holding you to them. Because excuses want release, but purpose demands resolve. And once purpose lives in you, discipline becomes sacred. Discipline becomes your highest expression of self-love. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop arguing with excuses. You stop asking for motivation. You show up, and that showing up is the knife that cuts the cord from poverty. Not just financial poverty, but mental, emotional, spiritual lack. Because you are done living small. You are done speaking the language of the poor. Now you speak in action. You speak in standards. You speak in results. And the world listens. Because now you speak in behavior. And behavior is the loudest belief system. It's not what you say in your quiet moments, it's what you repeat in your public ones. It's not what you feel in bursts, it's what you build in patterns. Action is identity in motion. So if your actions are scattered, your identity is unsure. If your actions are delayed, your belief is weak. If your actions are excuses dressed in logic, then you are not living, you are stalling. But when your actions become disciplined, when your days become precise, when your habits mirror your hunger, then you don't just make progress. You become unstoppable. Because there's something the world cannot deny the man or woman who refuses to stop. Not because they're gifted, not because they're lucky, because they made the decision to move forward even when everything screamed, stay. And that movement is not random. It's adaptable. Because now you no longer resist change, you ride it. You no longer pray for certainty, You command clarity inside chaos. You no longer fold under pressure. You flex with it. Adaptability is wealth. Not the wealth that shines. The wealth that survives. The wealth that lasts. Because the poor in mindset, they break at the first sign of change. But the rich in spirit, they bend. They morph. They reinvent, not because they're unshaken, but because they're unbreakable. And that unbreakable spirit, that's called resilience. It's not bounce back. It's bounce forward. It's using the fall to catapult your rise. It's using the wound to sharpen your weapon. It's using the silence to deepen your roots. Because resilience isn't built in comfort, it's built in crisis. It's built when your excuses are screaming and you tell them, you don't speak for me anymore. It's built when your body is tired, your mind is foggy, and your heart is aching, but you still show up. Not because it's easy, because it's required. Because regret is no longer welcome here. Because you've seen what happens when you live in excuses. You felt what it's like to watch others rise while you explain your limits. You've tasted what it means to know you're capable of more and still choose less. And you are done. Done with smallness. Done with softness. Done with maybe someday. Now you rise. And you rise as a learner because you know growth is the only guarantee of freedom. And the moment you stop learning, you start decaying. So you feed your mind like a warrior sharpens their sword. You devour truth. You devour challenge. You devour discomfort. You no longer fear being wrong because being wrong means you're still becoming. You no longer need to be the smartest. You just need to be the one who never stops evolving. Because while the poor argue, the powerful adapt. While the stuck defend their excuses, the uncommon study their execution. And now, so do you. Because you're not here to coast. You're not here to settle. You're not here to fit in with the tired, tame, and terrified. You are here to build, to become, to burn through the limits of your past and give birth to someone the world cannot ignore. Then stand still for just a moment. Let it all sink in. Let the excuses, the lies, the dead weight of average fall off you like old skin. Because this is the moment it all changes. Not because something around you shifted, but because you did. This is the moment you stop negotiating with your lesser self. This is the moment you bury the voice that said, you can't, with the roar of watch me. This is the moment the word someday burns into now. Because now you've remembered who you are. You are not here to explain why you couldn't. You are not here to list the reasons it was hard. You are not here to water down your potential to make the average feel safe. You are here to rise. You are here to become the exception. You are here to build a life so loud with evidence that excuses no longer dare to speak your name. So what's the next excuse? That you're too late? Time doesn't control the one who owns it. That you're too tired? Fatigue bows before purpose. That you've already failed? Then you're one of the lucky ones. Because pain is the only shortcut that matters. You are not your mistakes. You are the lesson pulled from the fire. You are not your past. You are the pattern breaker. You are not your circumstance. You are the creator of new reality. But only if you choose it. Only if you decide that today is the last day you speak the language of the poor. No more I wish. No more I'll try. No more maybe one day. From now on, you say, I will. You say, watch me. You say, this life bends to my will because I no longer bow to mine. Because this is your time. Not when it's easier, not when it's perfect. Now is the only time that ever mattered. Now is the only door that's real. Now is the only moment that separates you from the life you were given and the life you create. So what will it be? Another year of reasons? Another month of stories? Another day of playing small? Or will you rise? Right now, and declare with your entire being, excuses are the language of the poor, and I no longer speak that dialect. From now on, I speak results. I speak responsibility. I speak greatness, because I am done justifying mediocrity, and I have work to do. The world will pay you just enough to forget who you are. It will hand you a system, a syllabus, a sequence, and say, follow this, get a degree, learn the rules, get a job, stay in line. And for most, it works. Not because it fulfills them, but because it numbs them. Because formal education teaches you how to survive, but it rarely teaches you how to be free. It teaches you how to pass tests, not how to build wealth, how to memorize facts, not how to think critically, how to fill in blanks, not how to ask the questions that change your life. And so we graduate. We wear the robes. We frame the paper. And we walk out into the world trained to earn a living, but completely untrained to create a life. And that's where the great divide begins. Because the moment you realize your diploma is not your destiny, you stand at a crossroads. Do you stay loyal to the system that gave you the minimum? Or do you educate yourself into your own liberation? Because here's the truth. No one taught us in school. The curriculum that makes you wealthy was never in the classroom. It's in the pages no one assigned. It's in the podcasts no one graded. It's in the questions that made you uncomfortable. It's in the repetition no one clapped for. Formal education makes you a living. Self-education? Self-education makes you a fortune. Not just a financial fortune. A fortune in time. A fortune in freedom. A fortune in who you become. Because when you educate yourself, you don't just learn what to do. You learn how to think, how to unlearn, how to challenge, how to question the system that taught you to settle. Self-education is rebellion. It's responsibility. It's renaissance. It's when you stop waiting for the world to invest in you and you start investing in yourself. Not once, daily. You study your pain. You study your patterns. You study wealth, psychology, communication, leadership, influence, energy, emotion, discipline, vision, purpose. Not because someone told you to, because you decided to. Because you finally realized that the most expensive thing in the world is an untrained mind. A mind trained only to obey, but not to innovate. A mind trained to memorize, but not to monetize. Because let's be honest, most of what made you valuable in school won't make you valuable in life. School rewarded answers, but life rewards adaptation. School praised perfection, but life multiplies resilience. School measured intelligence by how well you repeated, but life multiplies the one who creates. And creation only comes from self-education. Because the more you learn, the more you earn, not just money, you earn options, you earn leverage, you earn peace. Because while the world waits for approval, you've trained yourself to move with authority. And when you move like that, the game changes. Because now, you're not just playing it, you're designing it. Because once you've tasted that power, once you've seen what your life starts to become, when you educate yourself with purpose, you'll never go back. You'll never again wait for permission to grow. You'll never again outsource your potential to a system that was never built for your greatness. Because now, you've discovered something far more valuable than grades or gold. You've discovered your mindset. And mindset isn't something they teach in school. It's something you build in purpose. Because self-education begins where school ends. When you realize your life is being built from the inside out, your beliefs, your focus, your thoughts, your rituals, this is where wealth is created. Not on paper, but in your philosophy. Mindset is what determines whether you see challenges as roadblocks or as rehearsal for your next level. It decides whether you see problems as punishment or as a divine curriculum for the person you're becoming. And once your mindset is rewired, your belief system starts to shift. Not belief in theory, belief in identity. You stop saying things like, I'm not good with money. I'm not a leader. I'm just not wired like that. You delete those programs and you install new ones. I am the kind of person who learns what I don't know. I am the kind of person who takes full responsibility. I am the kind of person who builds what they need to become. Because your belief system, it is the foundation of your entire reality. Your income, your influence, your intimacy. It all rises or falls to the level of your internal philosophy. And now that you've begun educating yourself, you're writing a new code. And that code breeds clarity. Because clarity is the most underrated currency in the world. You can have the talent, the resources, the time. But if you lack clarity, you will build a life that looks good to everyone, except you. Clarity is the cutting edge. It is what allows you to slice away what's urgent, to protect what's essential. It lets you delete distractions without apology. It lets you say no without guilt. It lets you stop chasing noise and start building legacy. Clarity makes you powerful because it makes you precise. And when clarity fuses with belief, a vision is born. Not a fantasy, not a motivational high. A vision, a picture of the life you were meant to live. A version of you that's unchained, unboxed, undeniable. You see it in detail. You feel it in your gut. And now you know, I'm not here to survive. I'm here to create. And that creation begins with discipline. Not the discipline they drilled into you in school, the kind that's built on fear, punishment, pressure. No, this is devotional discipline. Discipline born out of love for your future self. Discipline fueled by alignment, not anxiety. Discipline that says, I honor what I said I'd do, not because I'm trying to impress anyone, because it's who I am now. And when that discipline becomes daily, when it becomes sacred, your life becomes unrecognizable. Because once discipline becomes your baseline, action becomes inevitable. You stop overthinking. You stop second guessing. You stop rehearsing failure before you've even begun. You move, not because the stars align, but because your decisions are aligned. This is what self-education does. It removes the need for motivation. It replaces hype with habit. It replaces emotion with execution. And in that execution, you start building evidence. Evidence that you are becoming who you said you'd be. Evidence that your words are no longer hollow. Evidence that your future is no longer a fantasy. It's under construction. And the more you act, the more your world shifts. Not just what you do, but what you see. You begin to notice opportunities others miss because you've trained your mind to look for possibility, not permission. You stop chasing validation because your results now speak louder than anyone's praise. You stop fearing failure because you understand the only thing worse than failing is never evolving. And that's why action must be fueled by gratitude, not the surface level kind, not the write 3 things down kind. I mean soul level gratitude, the kind that brings you to your knees with realization. I get to build this life. I get to struggle for something that matters. I get to wake up every day and design my own reality. Gratitude is the amplifier. It doesn't just make life feel better. It makes your energy more powerful. It makes you unstoppable in the face of adversity. Because now you don't run from hard. You rise inside of it. And that's where adaptability comes in. The educated mind is not rigid. It's fluid. It doesn't cling to the way it's always been. It updates. When the plan breaks, you don't panic. You pivot. When life throws a curve, you don't crumble. You calibrate. Adaptability is the child of clarity. When your vision is clear, the method becomes flexible, but the mission remains non-negotiable. And as you adapt, you grow resilient. Because true education doesn't eliminate resistance. It teaches you how to leverage it. You stop seeing problems as signs to quit. You see them as reps. Every challenge builds capacity. Every setback forges character. Every detour develops depth. Resilience is no longer a trait. It's your default setting, because now you've rewired your identity. Now you're not someone who tries to change. You're someone who learns their way through transformation, because self-education never ends. You're a student forever, not in the way school taught you, but in the way life requires. You don't read to feel smart. You read to become strategic. You don't study to pass tests. You study to build tools. You don't chase certificates. You chase clarity, because you now understand the most valuable degree you'll ever earn is the one you give yourself. A degree in commitment, in self-awareness, in financial intelligence, in emotional regulation, in decision-making, communication, conviction, leadership, and legacy. You didn't get that from the system. You earned it in silence. You built it in the dark. You forged it through repetition. And now, you wear it in how you live. And that brings us here to the climax, to the moment where everything changes. Because this is the moment when everything before you, every chapter, every habit, every limitation, either becomes your excuse or your evidence. This is the line, the threshold, where the average turn back, where the uncertain wait, where the untrained mind looks for rescue. But not you, because now you know your freedom is not in the hands of the system that raised you. Your freedom is in the depth of your self-education. It's in how often you showed up to learn what no one forced you to study. It's in the hours you spent mastering what others called unnecessary. It's in the pages no one assigned, the mentors no one introduced you to, the sacrifices no one clapped for. This is what separates those who live a life by default from those who live a life by design. Because wealth isn't luck. Clarity isn't magic. Discipline isn't talent. All of it, every ounce, is a product of education you chose for yourself. The courses you took in silence, the books you devoured in solitude, the routines you built when your old self begged for distraction, the beliefs you rewrote when it would have been easier to just stay the same. And now you've crossed over, not to a perfect life, to a powerful one. A life that you built, not with inheritance or connections, but with decision, with devotion, with a hunger to become. Because that's what this was all about. Not becoming smarter, not becoming louder, becoming stronger, becoming wiser, becoming undeniable. And now, you don't just walk into rooms with confidence. You walk in with evidence. Evidence of work done, of identity built, of habits formed in fire, of a mind so tuned, so trained, so transformed, that the old life can no longer recognize you. You're not just educated anymore. You're armed with clarity, armed with vision, armed with self-belief so deep that failure is no longer your fear, it's your fuel. So when they ask how you did it, how you broke free, how you rose from average, how you created wealth in more than just money, you won't point to a degree. You won't show them a certificate. You'll say one sentence: I taught myself how to win. And that is why formal education made me a living. But self-education made me a fortune. Change is not lightning. It doesn't strike in a flash. It's not sudden. It's not sexy. It's a decision made in silence and honored in repetition. If your life is off course, if your days feel like déjà vu, if your results don't match your potential, don't look at your dreams. Look at your habits. Because your habits are not just actions. They are proof of what you believe about yourself. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And your systems are built on the bricks of your behavior laid one habit at a time. Most people want transformation. but few are willing to be transformed because transformation demands destruction of the old ways, the old story, the old identity. It demands the death of your autopilot. And that's why most stay stuck, because rewiring your habits isn't just about changing what you do. It's about redefining who you are. So today, we start there, not with hacks, not with shortcuts. With the one shift that makes all other change possible, you are not your habits. You are the architect of them. Your current routines, they're not fate. They're blueprints you agreed to often without question. But now, you wake up. Now, you question everything. Why do I wake up at this hour? Why do I reach for this food? Why do I scroll, delay, explain, escape? Because behind every action is a pattern. And behind every pattern is a philosophy. And if your philosophy says, I don't have control, then no strategy will ever save you. But if you change the philosophy, you change the pattern, you change the person, you change the life. Because once the philosophy shifts, the old excuses evaporate. The story of I'm just not disciplined dissolves. The identity of I'm not a morning person gets rewritten because habits don't belong to personality. They belong to intention. So now the real work begins. Not on your phone, not on your calendar, but inside your mind. You need to see your mind for what it is, a machine. And the code that runs the machine is repetition, not emotion, not inspiration, repetition. If you repeat it, it becomes real. If you reinforce it, it becomes you. So what have you been rehearsing? Every time you hit snooze, you rehearse avoidance. Every time you procrastinate, you rehearse powerlessness. Every time you quit early, you rehearse failure as identity. But that also means this. Every time you show up, you rehearse discipline. Every time you choose discomfort, you rehearse power. Every time you finish what you start, you rehearse a new reality. That is the rewiring. Not massive action once, but intentional action relentlessly. Because you don't become great by doing something big. You become great by doing something small, with absolute commitment, until it becomes you. Rewiring habits means mastering momentum. Not the feeling of momentum, the math of it. You stack tiny wins. You build streaks. You create an identity that says, I don't break promises to myself. That is the foundation of everything. Because most people aren't struggling from lack of time. They're struggling from lack of trust in themselves. And that trust is only rebuilt one way. Consistency over hype. Forget motivation. Motivation is the spark, but what you need is the engine. And the engine is systems. Want to read more? Stack it to your coffee. Tie it to a habit you already have. Make the trigger automatic so your behavior becomes unavoidable. Want to eat cleaner? Don't rely on willpower. Make the wrong choice harder to access. Make the right choice the path of least resistance. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Because true power isn't needing less struggle. It's needing less decision. That's what the best performers do. They don't try hard. They design well. Their life is a loop, built around their future, not their feelings. Because when your identity catches up to your intention, you don't try to be disciplined. You just are. You don't force your habits anymore. You flow them because they've been coded into your nervous system. They've been imprinted onto your story. And that story, that's what matters most. Because you can't outrun a story you're still committed to. If the story is, I always fall off track, you will. If the story is, I'm not consistent, you won't be. But if the story becomes, I'm a builder, I don't need to be extreme, I just don't miss, then the results follow. The confidence compounds. The environment adapts to you. And suddenly, You're living in a body, a rhythm, a reality that used to be your dream, because the dream was never a destination. The dream was always a system. Then we keep building, because this isn't just about improvement. It's about rebirth. This is about becoming someone so aligned, so rooted, so disciplined in identity that nothing in your old world survives the new one you're creating. And for that, you need more than intention. You need clarity. Clarity is not preference. Clarity is precision. Clarity says, this is what I do now, not someday, not when it's easier, now. Clarity isn't an emotion. It's a system override. It's what allows you to cut through the noise, to delete the unnecessary, to filter every distraction through the question, does this serve the life I'm building? Most people can't rewire their habits because they're still vague. I want to be better. I want to be healthier. I want to be successful. That's not clarity. That's wishful thinking. Clarity says, I wake up at 5:30. I train 5 days a week. I read 10 pages a day. I create content before I consume it. I track every rep, every dollar, every hour. Clarity is a weapon, because when you know exactly what matters, you stop negotiating with everything that doesn't. And when you stop negotiating, you start executing. That's where vision kicks in. Vision is not fantasy. Vision is the blueprint of your behavior. It's what shows you the price of inaction. It's what gives your routine a pulse, because the days will get hard. The feelings will fade. The hype will wear off. But vision will whisper through the fog. We're not done yet. Keep moving. Vision makes your habits holy. It makes the repetition feel sacred, not suffocating, because now every action is not just a task. It's a testament to the future you've already seen. And when vision meets discipline, you move from change to transformation. Discipline says, I don't care how I feel. I care who I said I'd be. You don't skip because it's raining. You don't delay because you're tired. You don't pause because no one's watching. You move because you said you would. And that alone rewires your identity. It tells your brain, this is real now. We don't miss. And when discipline becomes your language, action becomes your rhythm. Not random action, not frantic action, aligned action, action that moves in one direction, action that says, I no longer chase dopamine, I chase destiny. Because that's what rewired habits do. They make results inevitable. They collapse the gap between effort and identity. And when your identity shifts, you stop seeing resistance as a threat. You see it as proof. Proof you're no longer living in survival. You're stepping into standard. That's when adaptability becomes natural. You're no longer attached to method. You're married to mission. You're willing to change the plan, but you never change the principle. You're fluid, but not fragile. Flexible, but never unfocused. And when the storm hits, because it always does, you don't panic. You pivot, not out of desperation, but out of design, because now you've built the one thing that outlives every storm: resilience. Because resilience is not just endurance. It's evolution through pressure. It's not that you get back up. It's how you get up. Smarter, sharper, stronger. Because every fall now has a function. Every failure becomes feedback. Every delay becomes data. And that's what separates the ones who try from the ones who transform. Trying is emotional. Transformation is engineering. You engineer resilience by building a new response to chaos. The old you would panic. The old you would escape. The old you would binge, scroll, rationalize, hide. But the rewired you? You pause. You breathe. You study the storm. Because now you expect resistance. You welcome it like a rival that sharpens your blade. And you no longer collapse under pressure. You calibrate. That's the difference between temporary motivation and permanent identity shift. Because now you don't just survive hard things. You harvest them. You pull power from pain. You find rhythm in wreckage. You extract clarity from confusion. And you do this because now you are a learner, not a reactor, a student. You don't just do the work. You study the process. You reflect. You refine. You relaunch. That's how you stay dangerous. Because now every rep rewires your mind. Every set shapes your soul. Every win, every loss, every step is part of the feedback loop. And the more you learn, the faster you evolve. Because now you're not seeking shortcuts. You're building systems of truth. And the final truth, you are not your habits. You are the author of them. You are not your past. You are the programmer of your future. And now that future is not a fantasy. It is a framework, because every habit is a vote. Every repetition is a brick, and every brick is building something permanent. A body you respect, a mind you trust, a legacy that outlives your name, because now you don't just do things differently. You are someone different. The rewiring is complete when your actions match your alignment, when your schedule matches your standard, when your life becomes the loudest proof of your philosophy. And in that moment, when you look around, when you see the world reacting to your new rhythm, when the old you tries to whisper back in, you'll smile and say, that version of me doesn't live here anymore. Because this is what it means to rewire your habits for total life change. You don't just change how you behave. You change who you are. And the world, it has no choice but to rise to match you. Most people never decide. They wake up each day and react to alarms, to emails, to opinions, to pressure. They live on autopilot, driven not by purpose, but by proximity. Whatever is loudest wins. Whatever is urgent steals their energy. Whatever the world hands them, they accept. And slowly, silently, invisibly, they drift. Not because they're weak, not because they're lazy, but because they never declared, this is where I'm going. And life does not reward the drifter. It forgets them. It buries them in busyness. It drowns them in distraction. It seduces them into surviving, while deep inside, something sacred begins to rot their potential. But not you, because you're here now, listening, waking, confronting. And that means there is still time to decide, time to live with intent, not with casual interest, but clear command, not with half-hearted goals, but with unshakable direction. Because the truth is sharp. If you do not decide who you are, the world will decide for you. And it will choose something small, something safe, something numb. It will give you comfort without fulfillment, security without freedom, activity without alignment. And then, one day, when the noise has faded, when the race has slowed, you will be left with a haunting question. What did I do with my time here? That's why we don't drift. That's why we don't sleepwalk through life waiting for the right time. That's why we don't let the wind carry us, we set the sail. We live with intent, and that starts inside, with mindset. Not the kind you paste on your bathroom mirror, the kind you bleed for, the kind that is earned in silence and proven in storms. Mindset isn't just thinking positively, it's thinking powerfully. It's the inner conviction that no matter what the world throws at me, I still choose who I am. It's waking up and asking not what's easy, but what's required of me today to move toward the life I was born to live. Because drifting is default, but intent is design. It is war against mediocrity. It is the conscious, continuous decision to shape every moment before it shapes you. It is mental sovereignty. Your thoughts become your compass. Your standards become your guardrails. Your vision becomes your fuel. And belief becomes your breath. Because intent without belief is just a wish. But belief, real belief, it doesn't beg. It declares. It doesn't whisper, I hope. It roars, I am. And that's where power is born, not in circumstance, but in certainty. Not because it's easy to believe, but because it's essential to become. You must believe before the breakthrough. You must believe before the evidence. You must believe even when it costs you relationships, comfort, familiarity, because belief is the door. And most never walk through it. They stand outside waiting for proof, waiting for permission. But you're not waiting anymore. Because now you know your life will not rise to meet your potential. It will rise to meet your self-image. So raise it. Raise it beyond your upbringing. Raise it beyond your environment. Raise it beyond every lie that told you to stay small, to stay realistic, to stay silent. Because belief without boundaries becomes the birthplace of clarity. And clarity? Clarity is your sword in the fog. It cuts through noise. It eliminates confusion. It gives you the power to say, this matters. This doesn't. This is who I am. That is who I'm not. Most people drown in options because they never took the time to decide what actually matters. But you are done drifting. So you clarify your life like a master sculptor chisels stone, removing everything that doesn't belong, not because it's bad, but because it's not yours. You make room for greatness by cutting the good. And from that ruthless clarity emerges something holy. Vision, not fantasy, not projection. Vision is intention made visible. It is the movie playing in the theater of your soul. The life that pulls you when everything else pushes. The destination you've seen so clearly that turning back feels like betrayal. Vision is what gives your pain purpose. It tells you, this suffering isn't random, it's rehearsal. It tells you, this sacrifice isn't lost its alignment. Vision lets you endure what others can't, because you see what others don't. And when you live with that kind of sight, when you see who you could be, who you were meant to be, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to the couch. You can't go back to drifting. You can't go back to average. Because something wakes up, and that something demands purpose. Not just what you do, but why you do it. Not just what you build, but who you become through the building. Purpose is the difference between exhaustion and emptiness. People burn out not because they're doing too much, but because what they're doing doesn't mean anything. But when you move with purpose, even the hard days feel holy. Even the grind feels sacred. Even the repetition becomes revelation. You don't count hours. You maximize moments. You don't escape work. You worship the process. And that process, it demands one thing above all: discipline. The ability to live in alignment with your intent regardless of how you feel. Discipline is not control. Discipline is commitment to your future self. It's not about doing what's hard, it's about doing what's true. Even when you're tired, even when you're scared, even when the world says, just take a break. Discipline says, not now. I have a future to protect. Because every undisciplined choice is a vote for regret. And every disciplined decision is a step toward freedom. Live with intent or drift with regret. There is no middle path. Then breathe deep, because this next part is not for the faint of heart. This is where intention becomes incarnation, where thoughts turn into flesh, where dreams grow legs and move. Because once you've decided, once you've chosen purpose, vision, discipline, now you must act, not occasionally, not when you feel ready, not when you're inspired. Now, because action is the language the universe responds to, not your plans, not your vision boards, your behavior. That's how intention becomes real. You move. You get up before the sun. You train your body when no one's watching. You speak truth even when your voice shakes. You do the work no one applauds because you understand legacy is built in silence. That is the cost of alignment. You cannot live with intent and act from hesitation. You cannot move with vision and keep waiting for someone else to go first. You go first. You become the evidence. You make your life the loudest voice in the room. Because action without permission is the purest form of freedom. It says, I no longer need the world to agree, I just need to become. And as you move, as you build, as you live aligned to intention, you'll begin to notice something strange. Even the pain becomes sacred. Even the setbacks feel designed. Even the losses feel intelligent. Because gratitude takes over. Not the shallow kind, the deep, cellular kind. The kind that says, thank you for the obstacle, for the delay, for the resistance, because it shaped me in ways ease never could. Gratitude that turns hardship into fuel. That turns why me into try me. That turns every dark moment into a cathedral. You stop needing life to be perfect. You start seeing that it already is. You understand now every moment was a teacher. Every person was a mirror. Every season was a sculptor. And you are no longer bitter. You are better. That's what intent does. It doesn't just change your direction. It changes your perception. And when you start living from that level of gratitude, you become resilient. Not just strong, not just tough, but resilient. Resilience is not bouncing back. Resilience is bouncing forward. It's not recovering. It's rebuilding better. It's falling 10 times and standing up 11, not because you have to, but because you were born to. You were not designed for ease. You were designed for evolution. And evolution doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in crisis. You don't become powerful despite the pain. You become powerful because of it. So bring the pressure, bring the storm, bring the silence, the setbacks, the seasons of nothing working, because all of it becomes you. And if you embrace that, if you let go of needing it to be easy, needing it to make sense, needing it to be fair, then you rise into your final form, the learner, the master of humility, the one who never stops growing, not because they're broken, but because they are unshakably whole. Learning is not weakness. It is worship. It is how the strong stay sharp. It is how the great stay grounded. You study your own life like scripture. You study your mistakes like maps. You study Pio to copy them, but to expand your context. And because you never stop learning, you never stop evolving. You become impossible to contain. You outgrow your past. You outgrow your limits. You outgrow every box they tried to stuff you into. And now there's nothing left to wait for. You're no longer a wanderer. You're no longer drifting. You are deliberate. Every move, every word, every breath with intent. Then let the final flame rise, because this is the moment of return. Not return to who you were, but return to who you were meant to be. The one who was always there beneath the layers, beneath the fear, beneath the conditioning, the confusion, the chaos. The one who was never lost, only buried. Buried under the weight of expectation. Buried beneath the noise of the world. Buried by the lullaby of comfort and compromise. But now you remember. Now you rise. Not to impress. Not to compete. But to become the kind of person who lives every breath with fire. Who walks with conviction. Who speaks with clarity. Who moves, not because it's safe, but because it's true. This is the life you were always meant to live. A life of intent, not reaction, not survival, not drifting between jobs, between moods, between months, wondering where the time went, but a life where every action is a vote for the future you designed. A life where you wake up on purpose, for a purpose, with purpose. A life where regret never sets foot because discipline already claimed the space. A life where every scar becomes sacred, every trial becomes testimony, and every setback becomes the exact resistance you needed to forge the next level of you. Because you are not a product of your past. You are a weapon forged by your decisions. And today, you decided. You decided to stop asking for easier and start asking for excellence. You decided to stop chasing applause and start building alignment. You decided to stop drifting and start dominating your direction. Because that's the truth, isn't it? You were never afraid of the hard. You were afraid of the responsibility, of owning the fact that your life, your entire life is yours to create. But now you know. And once you know, you can never unknow. So this is the line. This is the vow. No more drifting. No more regret. From this day forward, you live with intent, with your head held high and your heart wide open, with your actions in sync, with your values, with your mission etched into your spine. You build what you were born to build. You become who you were born to be. And when the end comes, when the story closes, when you look back on it all, you won't feel regret. You'll feel reverence because you lived like it mattered. And it did. And it does. And it always will. Live with intent or drift with regret, but not both. You've already chosen. Now go prove it with every breath you've got left. The calendar doesn't change you. A new week doesn't change you. Another Monday, another sunrise, another round of this time I'll really do it doesn't change you. The world spins, the clock ticks, the seasons shift, but nothing changes until you do. This is the truth most people never confront because it's easier to wait for circumstances than to take control of them. It's easier to point at the economy, the boss, the schedule, the trauma, the timing and say, that's why I'm stuck. But the truth is, you're not stuck because of your surroundings. You're stuck because of your standards. You're stuck because you've been waiting for life to change while you stay the same. But life doesn't respond to hope. It responds to you. It responds to the energy you bring, the boundaries you build, the habits you honor, and the identity you embody. It responds to your alignment because nothing changes until you do. Not in theory, in action, in behavior, in thought, in discipline, in mindset. That's where transformation begins, not in the world, but in the mirror. The mirror never lies. It shows you exactly who you are not, who you pretend to be, not who you post to be, not who you want to be. It reflects your rituals. It echoes your excuses. It reveals your reality. And the moment you look into it without flinching, without defending, without avoiding, just the moment your life begins to shift. Because change is not an event. Change is a decision to stop blaming, a decision to stop waiting, a decision to stop letting the old you make choices for the future you. The difference between where you are and where you want to be is not found in motivation. It's found in the micro movements of your life, the things you do daily when no one's watching. And if those movements are driven by fear, fatigue, or the fantasy that someone else will come save you, then no matter what year it is, you're still living the same story. Because you can't build a new life on old habits. You can't create transformation with the tools that built your limitation. And you can't rewrite your story using the same ink that wrote your excuses. You must change. And that change begins with mindset. Not the kind that feels good to talk about, the kind that demands you confront the weakest parts of yourself. Mindset is not positivity. Mindset is perspective under pressure. It's what you choose to believe when nothing is working. It's what you say to yourself when the world goes silent. It's the standard you set in the moments that no one claps for, no one celebrates, and no one will ever see. Your mindset is the foundation, and until it shifts, your external life will always return to the level of your internal expectation. That's why broke minds sabotage wealth. That's why victims sabotage opportunity. That's why undisciplined minds ruin divine timing. Because your mind is either your engine or your anchor. And it's built not in bursts, but in belief. Belief in what you could be even when what you are doesn't look like much yet. Belief in the next version of you, the one that wakes up early, speaks with clarity, moves with purpose, and walks into rooms with conviction, not confusion. Belief isn't inherited. It's earned through repetition, through action, through honoring the voice inside you that says there's more. Because there is more. But you don't get it by staying the same. You get it by becoming. That becoming starts when belief births clarity. Clarity cuts through chaos. Clarity simplifies. Clarity doesn't give you more to do it. It gives you one thing to fight for. Clarity says, this is the life I'm building. This is who I must become to build it. And anything that doesn't serve that mission gets cut. Clarity removes distraction. Clarity gives your yes power. Because behind every yes that matters is 1,000 sacred no's. And when you get clear, truly clear vision takes over. Vision isn't wishful thinking. It's warfare. It's the picture of your future so real, so detailed, so emotionally charged. It makes staying the same feel like violence. It's what pulls you out of bed when your body wants sleep. It's what keeps your mouth shut when small talk tempts you. It's what makes the work, the boring, daily, gritty, thankless work feel holy. Because vision turns routine into ritual. And when you live by ritual, you don't need motivation. You have discipline. Discipline is the difference between a season and a system, between hope and habits. Discipline says, I don't need the mood. I made a move, and I honor it daily. Discipline is self-respect in action. It's the evidence that you love your future more than you love your comfort. It's the way you say to your highest self, I've got you. I'm not going anywhere. I will not abandon this path. And with that discipline comes action. Not erratic, emotional, desperate movement. Aligned action. Focused action. Uncompromising action. Because nothing changes until you change. And once you change, the world changes around you. Your finances shift. Your relationships shift. Your health, your business, your energy, they respond to the new you. But they don't lead, you do. Because when you lead, everything follows. And what fuels your leadership is not noise, not speed, not hustle for the sake of movement. What fuels it is gratitude. Not the gratitude you post online. The kind that breaks you open. The kind that makes you stop mid-struggle and whisper, thank you for this pain because it woke me up. Thank you for the setback because it showed me who I was becoming. Thank you for the detour because I never would have found my edge on the smooth road. Gratitude is how you hold your power in the middle of problems. It's not passive. It's not weakness. It is the ability to look life in the face and say, nothing you throw at me will make me ungrateful because I use everything. Every challenge is fuel. Every delay is data. Every hardship is another weight added to the barbell of your becoming. Because this is who you are now. You don't flinch at difficulty. You fortify in it. You thrive in the fire. Because you're not trying to get back to who you were. You're building someone new. Someone who bends but never breaks. Someone who adapts faster than average. Someone who transforms pressure into presence. Because resilience is no longer a nice idea, it is your natural state. And resilience is not bouncing back. It's bouncing forward. It's rising smarter, faster, deeper every time life tries to bury you. It's not about never falling. It's about always remembering who you are when you hit the ground. And who are you? You are the one who learns. The one who grows. The one who refuses to repeat lessons that were meant to evolve you. Because now you learn differently. You don't learn just to know. You learn to become. You study not just with your mind, but with your life. Every mistake is a mirror. Every win is a whisper. There's more. Every obstacle becomes your curriculum. You're not a victim of experience. You are a student of it. And the more you learn, the more you shed. You shed the version of you that begged for validation. You shed the one who waited for signs. You shed the one who delayed, distracted, explained, and excused. You've outgrown your old life. You've outgrown your old limits. And now the ground beneath you is different. The air you breathe is different because you are different. And the world responds to who you are, not who you want to be, not who you pretend to be, not who you used to be, but who you show up as now. And if you show up changed, everything changes. The room shifts. The standard rises. The results compound. And the regrets disappear because you didn't wait. You didn't hope. You changed. And now you're living a life built not by luck, not by force, but by internal transformation. That is real wealth. That is real freedom. And that is how you know the old you is gone. The one who waited. The one who made excuses. The one who thought time would solve it. Gone. And in their place, a force, a presence, a person who doesn't need guarantees because they are the guarantee, because they know nothing changes until you change. And you've already begun. Then let the silence fall. Let the dust settle. Let the excuses die. Because this is the moment you rise for real. Not with a spark, but with a firestorm. Not with inspiration, but with identity. Because this is not a motivational speech. This is a resurrection of the version of you you buried under fear. The one you silenced with doubt. The one you locked away in the name of playing it safe. But that version, the one built for impact, for legacy, for power, they're alive now. And now the question is not, will life change? The question is, how deep are you willing to go to change yourself? Because this is not about results. This is not about trophies, applause, or approval. This is about returning home to who you really are. Before the noise. Before the programming. Before the world told you how small to think. Because you were not born with limits. You were taught them. And now, you unlearn them. You strip the story down to the bone. You throw away the script. You build new rules. You move like someone possessed by purpose. You speak like someone who's done waiting. You walk like someone who understands. Nothing changes until I change. Not the market, not the job, not the world. Me. I am the system. I am the switch. I am the signal the universe was waiting for. And I don't knock on doors anymore. I build the house. And anyone who walks in, they rise too. Because that's the kind of gravity I carry now. Because when I changed, I became the proof. That transformation is not theory, it's available. That greatness is not inherited, it's chosen. That pain is not punishment, it's preparation. And the life I wanted was never out there. It was inside me waiting for me to stop talking, stop hoping, and start becoming. And now I'm here. No longer interested in someday. No longer curious about how long it will take. Because I've already decided, as long as it takes, as much as it takes, no matter what it takes. Because this is not a phase. This is not a moment. This is a rebirth. And from this moment forward, nothing changes unless I do. And now, I've changed forever. Average doesn't come knocking. It slips in silently, uninvited, disguised as normal, disguised as reasonable. It creeps into your habits, your goals, your thoughts until it owns your mornings, your effort, your identity. And by the time you realize what happened, it's already set up shop in your soul. Because average is not a moment. It's not a single decision. It's a pattern. And that pattern is a disease, a slow erosion of the fire that once lit your chest, a daily decay of the clarity that once moved your feet. It tells you, that's good enough. It tells you, take it easy. It tells you, why try so hard? And if you listen long enough, you begin to believe it. you begin to settle. You begin to rot while standing still. Because make no mistake, average is not neutral. It is not the middle ground. It is not okay. Average is regression, dressed in comfort. Average is decay disguised as balance. Average is potential betrayed by permission. And if you let it live inside you long enough, it kills your hunger, your mission, your becoming. But here's the truth. They don't teach in school. Average is a disease you can cure. It does not own you. You are not genetically average. You are not sentenced to mediocrity because of where you came from. It's not written in your blood. It's written in your choices. And choices can change. So if you're tired of waking up uninspired, if you're sick of living between goals you don't chase and dreams you don't claim, if you've had enough of doing just enough to not feel guilt but never enough to feel glory, then it's time to rise. Not slowly, not casually, not eventually. Now, because average has stolen enough from you. It's robbed you of mornings you didn't own. It's robbed you of conversations where you bit your tongue. It's robbed you of decisions you delayed, truths you avoided, work you knew was yours to do. But no more. Today you stop feeding the lie. Today, you cut the disease at its root. And that root is mindset. Because the mind is where average takes hold first. Not in your schedule, not in your bank account. In your belief, average begins when you start to think small feels safe. When you confuse peace with passivity. When you start to believe that just because everyone's doing it, it must be okay. But look around. Is it okay? Is drifting through life okay? Is quiet desperation okay? Is dying with your best still inside you okay? Not for you. Never for you. Because you weren't built for average. You were built for greatness. And that greatness begins the moment you take back control of your mind. Because when you fix the mind, the body follows. The habits follow. The world responds. And that mindset must be bold. It must be unreasonable. Because reasonable thinking is what got you here. Reasonable says, don't rock the boat. Reasonable says, be grateful for what you've got. Reasonable says, at least you're not failing. But greatness does not come from reason. It comes from conviction. Conviction that you were not born to blend in. Conviction that your life is a message, not a mistake. Conviction that no matter how deep the average has sunk into your bones, you can burn it out. And that fire begins with belief. You must believe that this life can be more, that you can be more, not when things are perfect, not when the stars align, but now, right here, right in the middle of the mess, right in the middle of the weakness and the doubt and the shame and the regret, because belief isn't built in the light. It's forged in the shadows. It's forged when you show up anyway. When you say, I don't care how long I've been average. I don't care what they said about me. I don't care what I failed at before. I'm not done. I'm not broken. I'm becoming. And once you believe, once you stop arguing for your limitations, clarity begins to rise. Clarity says, this is who I am. Clarity says, this is where I'm going. Clarity says, this is what I will no longer tolerate from myself or anyone else. And when clarity arrives, vision becomes visible. Vision that burns so bright it blinds your old excuses. Vision that makes average impossible to entertain. Vision that pulls you forward when your motivation falls apart. And with vision comes war. Because the minute you start living above average, average will fight back. It will call you arrogant. It will call you obsessed. It will beg you to slow down, to play nice, to blend in again. Don't. Because you've seen too much. You've tasted what it's like to want more. You've felt what it's like to dream in color while others are living in gray. And now the only way out is through. Then brace yourself. Because from this point on, you no longer walk like the rest. You no longer crawl through the days hoping for less pain. You no longer beg for ease, you train for war. Because discipline is now your sword. And you don't swing it out of fear. You swing it with precision. You understand now, average was never beaten by ambition. It's beaten by execution. Discipline is the cold, steady hand that says, I do what I said I would do, even when I no longer feel like doing it. Discipline doesn't ask if you're inspired. It asks if you're committed. It doesn't wait for the mood. It becomes the mover. And every time you choose discipline over desire, every time you delay comfort to protect your calling, every time you silence the voice that says, skip it today, you put another nail in average's coffin. Because this is what average fears most: not talent, not intelligence, not charisma. Consistency. The boring, relentless, unseen days of showing up, of doing the reps, of keeping the vow you made to yourself when no one else was looking. That's what makes you dangerous. Because average relies on your weakness. It counts on your emotions to lead the way. But now, you've reversed it. You no longer feel your way into action. You act your way into identity. And that identity, it moves fast, with direction, with violence toward your old patterns. You stop starting and stopping. You stop overthinking. You stop waiting for certainty and start creating it. Because action is your new default. You're not here to discuss it. You're here to do it. You're not here to explain the plan. You're here to embody it. And the more you act, the more the ground shakes beneath you. The more resistance rises. Good. Because pressure is the signal that you're no longer average. Pressure is the gate to power. And now you meet it like a warrior, not with panic, but with presence. You breathe in chaos like oxygen. You bend with the wind, but never break. Because you've trained in the dark. You've bled in silence. You've sharpened your spirit until it slices through storms. You are now resilient. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You've buried your excuses. You've buried your self-pity. You've buried the weak version of you that used to beg the world for permission. Now, you command it. You lead not because you have all the answers, but because you've earned the right to be followed. And still you remain a student, because you know mastery is never final. You learn from failure. You learn from discomfort. You learn from the hard lessons average avoids. You devour wisdom like oxygen because growth is your true wealth. Not titles, not likes, growth. That sacred inner evolution that says, I will be better tomorrow, not because I need to prove anything, but because I owe it to the future version of me that's waiting on the other side. So now, here you are, standing in the light. The disease has been exposed. You can see it, know in their eyes, in their talk, in their hesitation. Average is everywhere, but not in you, because you've made the decision. The final one, not to try, not to wish, but to cure it once and for all. Then take a breath, because this is it. The moment your story splits in two, the life you were living and the life you refuse to live anymore. This is the line. This is where you end the war with yourself, where you stop fighting for your limitations, where you stop justifying smallness, where you kill the version of you that kept shrinking to fit inside boxes you were born to break. This is where you bury average, and not with noise, with proof, with action so loud it silences every voice that ever said you couldn't, with effort so relentless it makes quitting irrelevant, with standards so high that mediocrity dies just trying to breathe next to you. Because now you are a problem for average. You are the one who rises early, moves with force, speaks with clarity, and lives with fire. You are the one who no longer waits to feel ready. You are the one who shows up regardless. You are the one who builds brick by brick, breath by breath, with no audience and no applause, because alignment is louder than approval. You are the one who says, I may have come from average, but average will not come from me. And from this moment forward, you walk differently. Not because you're arrogant, because you are aligned. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you're better than who you used to settle for. You know what's on the line now. Your future, your peace, your name, your example. Because someone's watching you. A younger version of you. A child in your home. A peer in your circle. A stranger praying to believe again. And your decision to rise? That ripple might be the reason they don't drown. This isn't just personal. It's legacy. And legacy doesn't come from average. It is born in the trenches. It is carved into time by people who refuse to let their potential rot in the soil of good enough. So rise. Not once. Not sometimes. Daily. Let your habits scream where your mouth used to talk. Let your work speak what your excuses used to whisper. Let your actions build the life that average told you you'd never deserve. Because now, you know the truth. Average is a disease, but it's one you can cure. And the cure isn't found in a book, a course, or a coach. It's found in the mirror. It's you. You are the antidote. You are the shift. You are the beginning of a new standard for yourself and for everyone who follows your flame. So light it and never let it go dark again.